Excuse me. Pardon me.
Hey, sit down. Hey guys, Alec, Kubas-Meyer here.
Hubert, Vigilla, how's it going?
From Flixist, we're talking, we're somewhere near the Japan Society, and today is the last day, thank God, of the Japan Cuts Film Festival and the New York Asian Film Festival, which we have been covering for way too long, and so now we're just going to talk about it. So, what do you think of the festivals, Hubert?
I quite enjoyed them, though admittedly I didn't see as many movies this year as I did last year, because I'm still suffering from burnout from Tribeca, and also South by Southwest, and probably the pre-burnout for Fantasia, which is coming up. I still enjoy the films, though. I actually, my favorite day was that long day of Taiwanese movies where we watched a bunch of Taiwanese exploitation movies, a documentary about them, and I also saw a really great rom-com, like a young rom-com that was just a lot of fun. It reminded me a lot of like a bunch of 80s teenage romance movies. It was quite nice.
That's interesting. I thought the most interesting thing about this festival versus last year's was that the crossover between Japan Cuts and NIAF was really strong this year. Last year, my least two favorite movies played during that crossover.
That was Hard Romanticer.
Hard Romanticer and Let's Make the Teacher Have a Miscarriage Club. Both of those were bad. But this year, I thought some of the first stuff I saw at NIAF itself was just kind of, and there was some really good stuff there for sure.
True, yeah.
I loved Have These Guys a Secret Tips, Very Ordinary Couple. I did a video about both of those. But the crossover stuff, I didn't see Story of Yonosuke. I saw every other movie, and I thought all of them were, except Helter Skelter, everyone was good or better, and a lot of them were great or better.
Yeah.
And then there were films like Bad Film, which, whoa.
There are two things I regret missing. Bad Film was one of them, and also Secret Tips, which I wish I had gotten to. I do regret missing some of the black films as well, because I know they did some earlier in the festival, and I missed them. And they're supposed to be crazy, like they're just supposed to have ninjas and nuttiness. But seeing the first of the black films, which is like sort of a social realism memoir adaptation called Never Too Late to Repent, to watch where that went. We talked about this, how it went historically from just sort of like this gritty, sort of violent social realistic film to these crazy exploitation movies about just like sex slavery and ninjas. It all in the scope of 2 years, no less, which is really incredible.
I wish I'd been able to interview more people. I didn't know. The director of Bedeviled was there.
Johnny Toe was in town. I didn't have a chance.
I didn't even know that I wanted to interview Lee Won-suk, who did Secret Tips, until the day I saw it. I would have loved to talk to E.J. Young about behind the camera and about what he was doing.
Oh yeah, that would have been an incredible thing too, because of how complicated the setup is, what is real, what is not real, like how he just cut down all that footage he had, because he had hundreds of hours.
Yeah, and I mean, Bad Film was the same in that there was just so much footage that they were going through. It's really fascinating seeing that kind of thing. I wish I'd seen some of the other movies like Juvenile Offender. I missed some of the Korean movies. I skipped The Concubine because I am so done with sexually charged Korean period pieces. Are there any things any things you wish you missed that you saw?
Actually, I lucked out. Almost everything I've seen I liked, or at least didn't mind seeing. I can't think of anything. I think everything's a blur right now, so I can't really think of like movies I saw. But I honestly don't regret seeing anything. I didn't have a woman in a war experience, luckily. So.
For the most part, aside from A Woman in War, I didn't see anything that I hated. I saw a lot of the movies were just too long, though. And a lot of movies had tonal issues. I thought that was really... Lesson of the Evil had tonal issues.
New Mickey,
the new Mickey, I mean, that movie's going to be really controversial. Killing kids in a school.
How young are the kids? Is it like...
sophomores in high school.
Post-Columbine, you cannot do a movie like that in America.
And post-Newtown, you really can't do that. So I thought that was really interesting that movie exists. Miike's probably done like 7 films since then because he makes a movie every 12 minutes. But
he's like Bob Pollard from Guy by Voices. Guy wakes up, just makes a movie.
Yeah. No, and it was a good movie. It was a well-done movie. It was really good-looking. Same with Helter Skelter, actually. Helter Skelter was gorgeous.
I will get to that at some point. Be able to see if it lines up with your review, talking about how it just looks great, but it's way too long.
Yeah, it is way too long. That was so many of these movies. Like Hentai Kamen was a million minutes too long.
Well, that's the funny thing, because it didn't even hit the 2-hour mark, but at a certain point, it just loses all momentum, and it just never regains.
Yeah, it came close. I mean, last year had Rent-A-Cat, which I loved, and was 20 minutes too long, and this this year, in a sense, there's just like so many rent-a-cats.
So it was like a Kurt's Rent-A-Cat case, but that was the special one.
Exactly.
You know, the interesting thing was actually the story of Yokosuke is about 2.5 hours long, but I loved every minute of it, and I don't know if I would have necessarily liked it if it wasn't 2 hours long, 2.5 hours long. But that's a question of runtime with the material. I think it works for that particular story, but when you just stretch it out way too long,
And it would be interesting if some of these movies actually had been like 2.5 hours to see what the difference could have been, because you know at some point you're like in this awkward medium between like too short, too long, and it feels like it's too long, but it should have been half an hour longer to fill in some of the gaps that you don't really understand are there.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about sort of what we take away from just NIAF and just Japan. I thought NIAF was really interesting this year, and I thought there were some good things. Those two Korean romantic comedies were two of the best movies I saw, but really it was the Japanese stuff. Three of my favorite movies were Therme Rome, which I loved. I love Therme Rome. I really liked Rurouni Kenshin. I thought that was really good. I'm Flash. I really liked.
I'm gonna catch up with that too.
You know, it's like an art film, but it's less convoluted. And I think a lot of the movies this year sort of made a lot of sense. Double Exposure not counted because Double Exposure might be the movie you regret.
That's true. Well, I don't know if I regret it because I think we had a really good conversation about it, and it did solidify some thoughts I had. Interestingly, Double Exposure played into my feelings about the complex, the Hideo Nakata sort of J-horror comeback, and why I didn't like that, because they both use the same sort of little twist in there where it's just like, I don't know, dude. Like,
yeah,
that
last year had Tormented. You know, that movie had this big twist like halfway through that completely negated the first half of the movie and made it make no sense. So, I mean, any final thoughts about the festivals?
As usual, I mean, I think both NIAF and Japan Cuts are so well curated. They're a lot of fun to go to. And I don't know, the audiences are always great. Like, regardless of how we felt about Hentai Kamen, like, at the end, seeing a movie with such a receptive and like happy and like hip to it, awesome audience is always a good thing. And I don't think I've ever had a bad audience at a screening of any NIAF or Japan Cuts film.
I had a problem with the Deviled crowd 2 years ago, but since then, yeah, no, it's been pretty good. The laughter at Lesson of the Evil was kind of awkward, but I mean, it was built into the tone, and I mean that was a bigger problem with the film than with the people in the theater.
That one I wanted to see, because if it's that divisive, that laughter must have been a lot more uncomfortable if you didn't like it. Like,
yeah, it was very uncomfortable. I think it's going to be interesting next year because Sam Jamier, who is the co-director of NIAF and the sole programmer of Japan Cuts, is leaving.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so next year. You know, and I mean, he's a fascinating guy. Every single time he introduces a movie, I have no idea what he's talking about, and I never think the movie in any way, you know, corresponds with what he just said. But, you know, I mean, he has interesting tastes. He definitely chooses interesting films, and so I think it's gonna be hard for another person to sort of take that role, because he's been doing it for years.
I wondered if he chose one of my favorite movies of all time from New York Asian Film Festival's Memories of Atsuko. I'm wondering if he was one of the people responsible for that, because that's one of the best picks I've seen in a.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where this festival goes in the future. I like the fact that it's combined with Japan Cuts. Like I appreciate that crossover. It would be cool if the New York Korean Film Festival were able to do some cross stuff with Subway Cinema in general. Subway Cinema runs, you know, the New York Asian Film Festival. You know, I feel like Japan, Asia, and Korea are the only three I know about. There's probably a Taiwanese film festival somewhere.
There should be one sprouting out pretty soon, because Taiwan seems like the next big place in terms of the great output, the creativity, and even just pulling off like sort of simple melodramatic genres like the rom-com so well with such energy and such authenticity. That they probably should have a Taiwan only.
My favorite film of last year's festival was a Taiwanese movie. You know, how these guys are not.
You're the apple of my eye.
Yes.
And my favorite was a Taiwanese as well, Starry Night.
That movie was so good.
Yeah.
See Starry Night if you haven't. Good movie. Okay, well, this is just devolving into us talking about movies. So, you know, hope you've enjoyed our coverage. You know, maybe we'll do it again next year.
Yep.
Okay.
Keep it real.